Cloud Strife, soldier drop... Wait, am I even allowed to say this? Will you guys be upset with me if I spoil a major plot point of the remake trilogy, which is actually from the original game, which came out over 25 years ago? Well, I mean, I guess it's not that integral to the video, so maybe I can let those remake players who are willingly ignorant of the original story the chance to experience it all themselves. Actually, you know what? I can't do that either. Listen, either play the original or play Crisis Core Reunion or don't watch this video. Spoilers for one of the most iconic games of all time are just kind of unavoidable unless you really, really live in a bubble.
What are you looking at? Never seen a kid in a bubble before?
Of course I have. Come on. My cousin's in a bubble.
Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Cloud Strife, soldier failure, Sephiroth clone, and main protagonist of the Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of my favorite characters of all time. Seriously, my younger brother has blonde hair and blue eyes, so I just called him Cloud as a kid, and that nickname has stuck with him despite his many complaints even 20 years later. And as I've, not to brag, recently platinumed the Crisis Core Remakester as well as the original Final Fantasy VII, I'm in the Final Fantasy spirit and wanted to take a look at just how powerful Cloud is from the remake in preparation for Final Fantasy Rebirth, which is releasing later this year. And I can already hear them announcing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Game of the Year at the next Game Awards, or, you know, whenever it's eligible.
Are you sure about that?
God damn.
Okay, so yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a competitive year, but surely Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be at least nominated, and to be fair, that last one was Final Fantasy as well. And just to be crystal clear on this, I will only be talking about the remake version of the character, not the original, which would include other sources like the light novels, Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, etc., etc. The events of Crisis Core are still canon to the events of the remake timeline per the director of both games, Tetsuya Nomura, so I will be using that as well as any supplementary material found within the games and outside of the games, but just to be clear on which version of Crisis Core is canon, it would be the Reunion version, and there are some differences that we'll dig into a little bit later. So with all that being said, let's find out just how powerful Cloud Strife is. But before we get into the power scaling, I'd like to take a bit of a look at Cloud's backstory because it is very important to understand how he came across this power and some of his abilities. So, as a young man, Cloud aspired to become a member of Soldier like the great hero Sephiroth. Cloud promised to return to his hometown as a hero, however, Cloud could not cut it and was not able to make it into the exclusive ranks, so he joined the Shinra Public Security Forces instead.
This man was a bona fide scrub.
Eventually, he was tasked with joining his friend and Soldier First Class, Zack Fair, as well as the great Sephiroth on a mission to the Nibelheim reactor, which was located in his hometown. Too embarrassed to show his face, he hid in plain sight as Zack and Sephiroth continued with their mission. Eventually, Sephiroth was driven to madness by what he witnessed within the Shinra facilities and burned down Nibelheim, slaughtering all of the citizens, including Cloud's family. Zack attempted to stop Sephiroth, but was no match for the powerful Soldier legend. While Sephiroth was distracted, Cloud took up Zack's sword and attacked Sephiroth, injuring the great warrior. Eventually, Cloud was stabbed through by Sephiroth, but found the strength to overpower him and seemingly end Sephiroth's madness for good.
Shit. Got your ass.
Despite suffering from mortal wounds, Cloud was taken by Hojo and infused with Genova cells as well as Mako energy in an attempt to create clones of Sephiroth. While Cloud was initially suffering from Mako poisoning, he was able to recover with the help of Zack, who eventually died at the hands of Shinra. These events had permanent and lasting effects on Cloud. Not only was he granted incredible strength, speed, and durability by the experiments done by Hojo, but he also suffered a severe mental breakdown as well. Cloud unknowingly took on Zack's life as his own, believing that he was formerly a member of Soldier and that he and Sephiroth were not only partners, but friends. Believing he was a Soldier First Class on the level of Zack essentially granted him the skills of a First Class Soldier, which is why he was so skilled and valuable on his very first mission with Avalanche. While Cloud would have some skill prior to his mental break, it wouldn't be anywhere near the level we see during the events of Remake, as he didn't even make it into the Soldier program at all, let alone make it to the level of First Class. We see this in battles against Roche, a Soldier 3rd Class. Cloud was able to defeat him on numerous occasions, again despite failing to make it into Soldier in the first place, reinforcing the idea that he was able to piece together the skill relative to a First Class Soldier when his psyche broke. However, even within First Class, there are massive gaps in skill and ability, the perfect example of this being Sephiroth, who could fight and defeat 2 other First Class soldiers simultaneously while not even exerting much effort at all.
Seriously, are you even trying to hit me?
While there was a noticeable difference in strength between Sephiroth and his friends Genesis and Angeal, let's keep focusing on skill for now. Sephiroth is able to nonchalantly deal with every strike coming his way, and later defeats Zack in a similar manner. Cloud, of course, is able to fight a version of Sephiroth at the end of Creation. I say version because we really don't know everything that is to come in the new trilogy and what changes may occur from the original, but let's assume this version is relative to Sephiroth's skill, as we see before his apparent demise. Cloud sets traps for Sephiroth, faking one way and then suddenly attacking from another direction, baits out Sephiroth's attacks to react properly, and generally displays swordsmanship and fighting ability beyond the level of any other Soldier First Class in the series, and we're just talking about skill specifically here. Even in the fight that occurs prior to the Edge of Creation, Cloud is able to actually tag Sephiroth with multiple strikes, so it's clear to see that Cloud has at least attained the level of Genesis, Angeal, and Zack, and possibly even exceeding their level of skill, especially when you factor in Cloud's insane dart throwing abilities.
Come on, Spully boy! Yes! Double 12! That is the most amazing leg dance you will ever see in your life! I can't speak!
As for raw strength, Cloud is able to battle against, defeat, and even call upon the aid of various summons when using summon materia. These summons are immensely powerful, able to draw their targets into their own pocket dimension where they can unleash devastating attacks. This is seen literally when Zack battles Ifrit, who teleports Zack to its fiery domain, as well as Bahamut Fury, who splits open space and time to battle with Zack. Additionally, when these beings are summoned against standard enemies, those enemies are pulled into the summons dimension as seen during their cinematics. Bahamut Fury destroys the moon with Exaflare, but the moon in the real world is unaffected by this, so it's pretty clear that the pocket dimension created by the beasts mirrors the real world but doesn't affect it. There's a quote from the original Crisis Core Complete Guide which states, "Summon beasts are beings which are called forth from summon materia, many of which outwardly resemble monsters. As seen in the original game of Final Fantasy VII, many of the summoned beasts draw their targets into their own unique space in order to attack." While the statement would clearly only be referencing the original Crisis Core as stated, as well as the original Final Fantasy VII, it works the same way in practice in Crisis Core Reunion, even if we don't have the same explicit statement. But we'll get back to that in a minute. Ifrit is stated to be able to turn the world to ash. Lowballing this would be roughly 1 exaton or multi-continental, assuming this means Ifrit vaporized the entire planet's water supply, as well as turning the remaining surface to ash. But if we take this statement literally, then Ifrit would have enough power to destroy the planet, calculated at 57.3 zetatons or small planetary. Zack could defeat Ifrit, and Cloud defeated a copy of the summon as well. Not only this, but Zack is deemed worthy enough to summon these various monsters. The summons will not listen to or obey a user of their materia whom they do not respect. Defeating them in battle is usually the bare minimum which would allow the user to summon them, and if the user is deemed unworthy, the summon would rampage out of control, killing the summoner. In Remake, Chadley reveals that he found out how to artificially create summon materia. but in order to test if the materia is just as potent as the materia used by Zack, he needs Cloud to fight the summons in the battle simulator. Shinra's battle simulator poses very real danger as detailed in Crisis Core, and Chadley uses a portable version of the same one operating within Shinra's facilities. Defeating Chadley's recreations will earn their materia for Cloud, and as predicted, the summons become usable afterward, proving that Chadley's theories were indeed accurate. If we really want to highball how powerful the summons are, we need to consider the summons' ability to sustain their own pocket dimensions, which in the case of Bahamut Fury is a mirror of the real world's universe with innumerable star systems seen throughout. Creating and or sustaining a pocket dimension containing a starry sky is a multi-solar system level feat. Again, that's assuming Bahamut Fury created this pocket dimension or powers its existence based on the statement that the pocket dimensions are unique to the summons and would not exist without their power. I think this is depicted more literally after Sephiroth defeats Ifrit and the pocket dimension then dissipates because Ifrit is no longer powering it. So at full power, they can summon these pocket dimensions and power the pocket dimensions as well. Additionally, Cloud and whatever help he received from his party members defeated a replica of Vice. Vice is a soldier member of Deep Ground, whom Chadley recreated in the Shinra Combat Simulator for Cloud to test. As Chadley finishes uploading the data, he notes that Vice is more powerful than he's ever been, and that power has been extracted down to the most minute details. As Chadley states, he was able to replicate everything about Vice, including his thought patterns and stress responses. As we noted earlier, the combat simulator poses very real threats. Although Chadley tells us Vice won't be killing anyone as it is a training exercise, Vice seems to have other plans, so it could be implied that the simulation could actually kill the person within it. Additionally, Chadley seems to be worried that he made the wrong decision on replicating Vice, something he isn't worried about with the various summons. He even warns Cloud that Vice is extremely dangerous. I'd go as far to say that Vice is far above the various summons in total power. However, he is defeated by Cloud and company. Director of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Tetsuya Nomura, gives us a bit more information on Vice, stating that he was included as Vice is a powerful enemy outside of Sephiroth, which to me sounds like Vice would be above the level of every other foe other than Cloud's primary nemesis. At the very least, Cloud would scale to Ifrit as he defeated an exact replica of the monster, and if we want to say Cloud would be relative to Zack, he should scale above Bahamut Fury, who could obliterate the moon at minimum and create multiple solar systems at a high end. And again, if we want to say that Cloud is relative to Zack in total power as well as skill, as we already mentioned, Cloud would be above the level of Minerva. Minerva is kind of like a god within the Final Fantasy series, the closest thing to a true god, I guess, that there is, and kind of represents the will of the planet itself. So Zack was able to defeat Minerva, something that Shinra thought to be impossible. Shinra determined that Minerva was far, far above the level of any other summon, and that all of their technology couldn't even measure the total power of Minerva, let alone hope to contain her. So if Cloud scales to Zack in power, and Zack was able to defeat Minerva, a being whose power completely dwarfs every other summon in the game, then we're getting into like galaxy busting level power. But again, that's assuming that Cloud scales to Zack's power, and we're not 100% sure of that at this moment, because we don't really know how this version of Sephiroth scales to the previous one. We'll probably know more as future games come out, but for now, I think it's safe to say that Cloud would scale above Ifrit at bare minimum. As for speed, Crisis Core Reunion sort of kind of takes away the insane speed scaling that Zack and Sephiroth have from that original game, where Bahamut Fury is depicted flying through space at massively faster than light speeds, but the cutscene was changed for Reunion and that part was cut out. So let's take a look at the remake for more direct speed feats. During his fight with Shinra's President Rufus, Cloud is able to react to Rufus's laser beams. In the Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimania, the beams are referred to as beams of light, making them light speed. However, reacting to a light speed attack doesn't necessarily make you light speed. The final calculated speed for this particular feat comes out to sub-relativistic, which is between 1 and 5% the speed of light. As for unique abilities, the list is long. The number of various materia that Cloud has access to grant him various magical and special abilities on a whim, and Cloud has basically every materia. Not only can he summon numerous powerful extra-dimensional monsters, but he can also heal himself and others, cleanse any negative status effects such as being blind or poisoned, revive himself and others should they die, cast elemental spells such as fire, ice, lightning, and wind. He can create magical barriers around himself or others, put his enemies to sleep, mind hacks his enemies with Berserk, or prevent them from casting their own magic with silence. He can remove any buffs his opponent has using Dispel. He can alter time to slow his enemies, speed himself up, or even stop time entirely, and that's only about half the abilities he has access to with the materia alone, not to mention all of the various items that he keeps on himself at all times, such as high potions, ether, or phoenix downs. But most impressive is something we have not even touched on yet, and that's his ability to not only resist fate, but alter fate itself. The entire third act revolves around this, and battling and defeating the Harbinger of Fate itself is literally what the party does. It's spoken plainly throughout the final act, and the information given about the Whisper Harbinger details that they are arbiters of fate, and are directly connected to the threads of time and space that determine the fate of the planet.
But if we do, we'll be changing more than fate itself.
This is literally altering destiny. So if you're doubting that Cloud can either resist the effects of fate or change destiny, you're just plainly incorrect. It's literally what they do. They defeat the manifestation of fate itself. So it's just an ability that the remake version of Cloud has. And that's pretty much everything I have for Cloud thus far within the remake. If you'd like me to touch on just how impressive Zack is or Sephiroth, I think we'll probably have to wait until we get a little bit more information. And of course, I can always update this video as the next game is released, or touch on any other characters from the series that you'd like me to talk about, specifically talking about Final Fantasy VII, although I probably could also power scale like Noctis from Final Fantasy XV. I've done a little bit of research into that in the past, but Final Fantasy is one of my favorite series, so if you guys like this video and want to see more, let me know down in the comments, and if you hate this video, I guess also let me know that, but try to be nice about it. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We really do appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment. We need help with the algorithm, as the channel is currently not getting the views that it used to get, so leaving a comment would really help out. So with all that being said, remember the motto, it's Cloud Strife over everything, and I'll see you guys in the next one.